Hello, this video is going to offer an overview of the other videos in a playlist on the urinary system. Now, different courses can cover the urinary system in varying degrees of detail. This is meant for courses which cover it more superficially, and so I'll go through a number of topics quickly, and obviously these videos go on into these topics in more detail. When we eat proteins, we break the proteins into amino acids. The amino acids can then be used for energy, among other things. So for example, these carbons here can be sent to the Krebs cycle. Now, amino acids have their name because they have an acid group and an amino group. And in order to break this down for energy, one has to remove the carbons from the amino group. So the amino group is removed. But that's a potential problem because if an NH2 amino group has a hydrogen attached to it, that then makes a molecule of ammonia, and ammonia is toxic. And so we potentially poison ourselves simply by digesting proteins in our diets. The liver helps us out, as so often it does. It will take two of these aminos and attach them to a central carbon to form urea, which is much less toxic, but nevertheless, it must be removed. Now, I don't mean to suggest that the removal of urea is the only function of the urinary system, but it is certainly a primary one. The urinary system also helps to regulate the amount of fluid in our bodies, the composition of these fluids. Some hormones come from the urinary system, including, say, erythropoietin from the kidneys, which has to do with red blood cell formation and not much with urine at all. The urinary system is a system. It only has 4 organs. The ureters, there's a pair of each, one bladder. The kidneys are retroperitoneal. They are not located in the same cavity as the intestinal peritoneum. They're actually located behind the peritoneum, held in place. Bodies can be seen in this. There's a renal artery and vein, which bring blood to and from the kidney. And it's a priority for our bodies to move this nitrogenous waste from the blood. At rest, at least maybe a quarter of our blood can be sent to the kidneys to filter urea. So that's an amount of the blood leaving the left ventricle, which is heading potentially to kidneys at rest to remove urea. Kidneys, if we were to look at a cross-section, we have an outer cortex and medulla, which has these and it is cortex and the medulla. Once urine is made, then it simply has to drain spaces. The spaces start off small, minor calyces. They drain into larger, major calyces, which drain into a larger pelvis, which then urine into the ureter. In a cross, you see the difference between the cortex and then the medulla are the microstructure as the nephrons, which are a unit of a kidney. A kidney is essentially made of 1 million nephrons. Everything that the kidney does, it's what nephrons do essentially. And so we'll just go through the macroscopic anatomy of the urinary system, but then to return to briefly the nephron functional unit of the kidney. Once urine is made, then it has to drain from the kidneys through ureters to the bladder. Others are transmitted walk upright with gravity, but also they have smooth muscle in the waves of muscle contraction pulses can also help move urine towards. Ureters can alkaline secretion to help from. Here you see a cat transmit urethra. There are 2 kidneys and 1 single urethra enter into the weekly. As the bladder one, then opens so that now there are 3 things that go into the bladder: 2 ureters, 1 on either side. Then one could draw an imaginary triangle between these 3 openings. From the 2 ureters, the 1 exit the urethra, and it's urinary bladder but it is a smooth muscle, and so reflexes like this is demonstrable arcs. Pressure will then go to the be relayed to the spinal cord, and then messages will go to the smooth muscle of the bladder, causing its constriction. Epithelia of the There's a special kind called transluminant. Usually every shape are they. So here in the cat, bladder, there is the urethra in the next video. In is both urinary and reproductive. In female, like in that cat, it can be separate, as in primates and humans. Whereas in the cat, the urethra can fuse with the vagina, and once again, just like in males, they're going to be urinary and reproductive structure. That was an opening of the ureter into the bladder. Here's the skull of the bladder, and the epithelium, which is normally a name for shape. What is squamous? Is it, like it's a cuboidal? The bladder can stretch. These cells can then, and so therefore there is what is known as transitional epithelium. Transitional epithelial cells sometimes slough off and can end up in urine, and this is normal. Just like the squamous epithelial lining, the urethra can slough off and end up in urine. So when urine is spun down, there are certainly abnormal cells known as casts, which can be used to diagnose cells or red blood cells, but should not be there. Squamous from the urethra, epithelial cells can come from the bladder, and these are normal. They're just normal into there are two ureters, one single exit from bladder, the urethra from the body. In males, I'm sorry that we've been slowly. Sorry about that. Once again, there are two kidneys, two ureters, one bladder, one urethra, which eliminates urine from the body. In males, the urethra is not only a urinary structure, but also a reproductive structure. Not only does urine pass through the urethra, but so does semen. In females, this will then vary from group to group. And as I said, in about half of mammals, there is some fusion of the urethra and the vagina. So there is some fusion of urinary reproductive structures. But in primates, such as humans, that's not the case. And so the urethra is only a urinary structure. So here you can see that the epithelia lining the urethra is made of several cell layers. It's stratified, and the cells are squamous, flat at the superficial, the apical layer. That's why squamous epithelial cells can be in urine. And so, as will be covered in the reproductive system, the vas deferens, which is a reproductive tube, forms an ejaculatory duct in males, which joins to the urethra within the prostate gland. So not only can urine pass through the urethra in males as part of the urinary system, but so too can semen, because it can pass through the ejaculatory duct. The urethra in males is much longer and can be split into a prostatic urethra, a membranous urethra here, and then the penile urethra passing through the penis. Because of its length, males are much less likely to suffer from a urinary tract infection, because it's harder for microbes from the digestive tract to colonize the urethra. So the urinary system is a smaller system with only the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. Just very quickly going back to the kidneys contain about 1 million nephrons. Nephrons are the microscopic unit which makes up the kidney, and their description could be long or short. I'm going to make this very short, with much greater detail in the videos. Nephrons have two essentially and three functions. The first part of the nephron is essentially in a bag. This is what's the renal corpuscle. Here, the blood is filtered. So there's essentially poison waste are toxic enough, and therefore the purpose is to get the out. And so is where capillaries and the filtrate that comes out of the cup in a bag. As the purpose of the filtrate comes out at the renal corpuscle. From the renal corpuscle, then renal tubules. So it passes through capillaries. While it's here, filtrate out, not blood. And the filtrate includes the waste. So the renal of a nephron filters the blood through this long renal tubule. Has two main jobs. One is to reabsorb, because filtrate is the stuff that the body rid of. A lot of water is lost in the filtrate, a lot of sugar, salt, amino acids. And so along this renal tubule, the good stuff is reabsorbed. So most of the water, the salt, the glucose, the amino acids are reabsorbed so that they aren't eliminated as waste. So instead of the 180 liters of filtrate, which is made, now only say 1 or 2 liters of urine is made. So most of what comes out of the blood is ultimately reabsorbed. The final function of a nephron is we can also excrete a bit more waste. If we have too much water, we can excrete more water. If we have too much sodium, we can excrete more sodium. But we can also excrete potassium. Here, we can secrete more acid, and the urine can be much more acidic than the waste, or than the blood that it originally came from. We can secrete some ammonia, and so this nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. Each kidney has about 1 million of these, and if you wanted to better understand what kidneys do, you would be studying the nephron. And nephrons filter the blood at the renal corpuscle. That's one of their 3 tasks. And then along the sections of the renal tubule, the good stuff is reabsorbed: the water, the salt, the glucose, the amino acids that the body wants to keep within it. But then additional waste can be secreted. So that's a quick overview of the urinary system.